Trekland, and we're live. And today, a special Star Trek Ask Me Anything. Yeah, today on Trekland Tuesdays Live with me, Dr. Trek, Larry Nemecek, coming to you right here from the heart of Trekland through Portal 47 to bring you a little bit of clarity, sanity, and the big picture and all things Star Trek today. Thanks again, everybody, for being with me on a Tuesday. And you know what? I am heading out on a road trip. First time in ages, an overnight road trip. It's a slow-ish week in Star Trek. I have some topics we're working on for future weeks. And so this week, I was up till 2 a.m. thinking about a theme from this week. And I thought, you know what? Time for an AMA. So guess what? We're going to plunge right into the chat as soon as everybody has a moment to recover. And we'll see how everybody's doing and how you're doing and what's on your mind. I always say this. The chat is great. We have a great TTLers community, right? Thanks in part to a lot of our Patreons that are helping us out, our TTL Club and our TTL Live Wires. So thanks to all of them once again for helping me bring multi-stream Trekland Empire out. But today, yeah, we're going to just dive right in. No soapbox. I've got the Parrots ready. We'll do the look at the Parrot Analytics streaming TV ratings top 10 for the U.S. No Star Trek involved, of course, because there's no fresh Star Trek. We're into the great summer stretch here where it's counting down. And what will it be? Will it really be Lower Decks first? Will Prodigy sneak out of the gate somehow on short notice? It'll be interesting. But right now, let's see what's going on. Everybody, pop it in here. I always say questions, please. We always have great Lifer community, or Lifer. Well, we do on Saturdays. We have great Lifer community chat. Here it's the DTLers. But it's a great community. I love you guys all to pieces, and I can't wait to see a lot of you live in person, that is. So for right now, we're making do here and making do quite well, I should say. And rather than... yeah, I'd prefer questions. It would be great if we could have some meaty discussions, but I know a lot of times the conversation of the day carries it. I also know that we're global. That's one of the awesome things about all Trekland, whether it's here or Live Sport Live on Saturdays, or hey, over in the portal with my Portales. But let's see what's going on. Yes, I'm going to plunge right in. I'm going to resize this window so it's not so obvious when I don't have the chat square. All right, let's see. Does anybody, this will be interesting too. Let's see how long we go today just on a diet of only questions in chat. I don't know. Good deal. Well, so far the stream is good. That's always helpful. Yay. I learned a couple of tricks since last week. We'll see. None of them are silver bullets, supposedly, but we'll see what happens. Aha! Marina's on with a real question. Speaking of Prodigy, when do I think more information will start coming out? Will they time something special for virtual SDCC? Things appear to... Marina, I have heard rumblings that there is some special Captain Picard Day programming coming. I don't know if that'll be Prodigy or more topic-oriented, theme. Diversity or quasi-political or, by craft. We get writers together or whatever. But I've heard there's some Captain Picard Day specials coming. And then after that, yes. Virtual, I just, speaking of Comic-Con, I just recorded a virtual, nothing with Star Trek, although it was. A virtual Comic-Con at Home panel that I've got to get sent in before this road trip. But that won't be till the end of July. And then there's Trek Vegas in August. And then some of the fall cons are coming back. New York Comic-Con is going to happen in October, yes. I don't know. We'll see. We're getting all these scary moments here now coming out of England with the Delta. I like how they finally... Instead of naming hurricanes out of the place they started, imagine if you went your whole life damning the Bermuda hurricane. or the Canary Islands hurricane. The Delta variant might be bad in the UK, and we'll see what happens over here. Brazil is running amok right now. They're trying to get a handle on it. I hope, global win. We're all global. It's easy to forget that when you're in a big country like the US, but I hope none of the trends sabotage any of our, I hope we get vaccine to the rest of the world and we get everybody at the same level as soon as possible. And there are places of Africa that and areas of Asia that are way behind the curve where they ought to be. And the people are begging for it. It's not their fault. So all that said, I hope we're back live, and I hope CBS is prepping. Boy, there's some big leaps in topic. I hope CBS is prepping to get some specials out. Mid-August is the announced start for Lower Decks, so we'll see. I'm with you though, but then it's the first time we haven't seen it yet. We know more about Strange New Worlds than we know about Prodigy. So have some holographic coffee and just relax. But I'm thinking we may have some sooner than Comic-Con virtual. How about that? Oh, and I didn't. Let me see here. Boom! I forgot to do what I can do, and look at that. We're having a little bit faster response time. So there you are, Marina. You're official. Jesse. Sorry, I can't resist this. Open topic for the questions? No, I'm sorry. We're looking for questions about Star Trek. Okay, William. Hey, you're going to be meeting Lou Ferrigno. What's it like working with him on Star Trek News? It was great. It was great. I sat at the right hand of the Hulk for the dinner scene in episode 2 in Lolani. I felt sorry for him because he was in the green. It was really green paint, not green makeup. It was really kind of an elasticized. We started with green makeup. This is Lisa and Tim would be better to answer this, but I one of my most vivid memories of all of Continues is after the first, and it wasn't with Lou, it was with Fiona in his Lolani. The first day they shot, it was just all the old original series stories come back true. The green was just, no matter what they had tried to do with newer formula, the green was just rubbing off. It was a nightmare to keep up and keep even. And I can see at the end of the day, Tim with his cell phone out back of the building there. I guess people taking the tour are familiar with it. Not the Star Trek tour in New York, but down south in Kingsland in Georgia. If you're out back behind there, Tim was out there to get a better cell signal, ordering buckets of the plasticized, airbrushed on makeup that actually held tougher. Point being that by the time we got Lou, the green technology had been perfected over a few days with Fiona. But I felt bad for him because he's just a massive guy, and it took. I hate to make this all about the makeup, but it took forever to get him greened up. It was only 2 days he shot, probably over the weekend, and it took forever to get him into the green. And then there were places, sometimes your skin is oilier than others, so it releases on the oily. Sometimes your skin is nice and dry, and that stuff sucked into dry skin. And there were nights when he had a couple of makeup crew people with brooms, and it was not pleasant. They were having to, frictionate some of the green that would not come off easy. And there were a couple of people in the shower with him. He had his skivvies on, but it was really, it took like an hour to get it all off. It was amazing. Kudos to him for the patience and the interest that he had in wanting to be involved with that. And he saw it as a win for him, so good on that. And that was only the second episode, and he saw it as a win for him too. So that's what I remember. And he was pretty good. He had a good time. Aside from that whole green makeup thing, it was a struggle on lines at times. And I don't mean a struggle. I mean, he flew in. He's overcoming his deaf, speech impediment, which he very proudly has worked on his whole life. And you saw the performance he gave. So, and the rest of us interacting with him, especially the dinner scene. But that was, I will always hats off to Lou for the patience he had he didn't have to walk into that. And he did. And he saw it as a plus and a win. And I think he did. I think the world sees it as a plus and a win for him too, as well as the continues series and cast and all that. Yes, indeed, Jared. Would you like to phrase that in the form of a question? Very good. Yes, Jesse, that's kind of it. That's kind of it. Trek related and BTS. Although, the last 5-10 years, Trek business and franchise, everything is kind of a abundance area here too. Oh, wow. Wow, well, these are great questions. We've actually got real questions today. Did I just totally cut out the chatter here by getting right into it? Maybe I should just totally throw out the format of Tuesdays Live. Is it not fit for 2017 anymore? Or is 2017 not fit for 2021 anymore? Captain Calvin Cat from across the pond on Twitch. I'm still working on my fanfic book. Did I ever feel something like writer's block coming on when I was doing the Trek researching things you did? Not really, because the good thing about researching and non-fictionizing that way is that the material is driving it. My fiction and non-fiction brains are as left-right as the arts and organic science and the arts, or whatever, however you want to divide up your brain lobes. I think when I was a kid, I read a lot of fiction, a lot of books, but I almost feel like I burned out 6th or 7th grade, and the nonfiction world, history and space and science and fictional worlds took over. And I've regretted that, and I didn't read as much fiction, and don't tell anybody I know in fandom, but I haven't really read that much. I'll read analysis, I'll read Cliff Notes, like life is too short, and experiential things aren't always, reading. But as far as having a writer's book, the hardest thing about doing all these stripes of nonfiction is just knowing how to start. Once you get going, or you have a format, and sometimes the hardest thing to me is, especially if it's a magazine piece, because they're short, it's just coming up with the intro to get going. And then once that happens, you're flowing. And I've said this many times, the easiest thing, well, the companion was insane because I was writing it in 3 months, but I had the outline of what I wanted to do, which is somewhere between the making of and not the concordance, because I'd done my self-published concordances before that, at Asherman's book, which was like a redo of David Gerald's books, and Bijo kind of remungled. But that format only with everything that I had always wanted to do differently. So I had a starting point there. But no, the thing that was the most effortless, that I'm the most proud of, is the piece I wrote back in the day for the Trials and Tribulations shooting. It was like a live action log. It was switched back and forth between a shooting diary and extended conversations with all the creators. That if you saw the last CD we put out, hopefully not the last, but the latest, the one about the 30th anniversary shows, more about Tribulations than flashback. Those are all the original interviews I did for that. And I have the PDFs on my page. I haven't posted the link in a long time, but the piece from Communicator is up. But that was like, I had the idea in my head and it just flowed. I wish they all did that easily, though. Hey, here's a great question, Justin. What's it going to take to get me as a guest at Planet Comic-Con Kansas City? Talk to Planet Comic-Con Kansas City. Hey, I would love to be there. I've got relatives in central Missouri that I keep telling them when I get to a St. Louis or Kansas City con. I mean, that's not my excuse for not wanting to see them. It's just the reality of the world. And then we've had the last, year and a half now the way it's been. But I keep hoping to do that. So yeah, if you know someone at Kansas City Comic-Con, I mean, I've even talked to, Dayton and Kevin about it, and they're like, yeah. So it would be great to be on their home turf. It'd be great to see my family. It'd be great to see all the Kansas City fans. And you know what? I went to KU for my grad school, and KU, I mean, I'm not even I don't know if anybody is there. I think anybody that was there when I worked on my master's in theater is gone. But it was interesting to see good old J. Hawker Towers and Murphy Hall. So if you know somebody, sure, put in a word for me. Speaking of Missouri, Jared, very good. CDL training. I'm so glad it's not just you go get a license. You're actually getting trained because commercial driver's license, those big semis, those big trucks are a bear to move around, to maneuver. So good luck on that, man. Here we go. Calvin Cat. Speaking of book fanfic, how fast are the creators of the book canon to implement the events of the TV canon? Well, it's kind of weird because there's a lot less episodes shooting, but it used to be that writers would come back in April, May, June-ish. They'd start shooting by July, August-ish, and then the writers would take off, and each department, the writers first, and then the stage shooting would shut down, and then the post, visual effects and post and music and all that would be the last ones to finish up. Obviously, everybody else would be gone. It would be a ghost town those last few weeks. But it was a fairly quick production to airing overlap. Now it's like this. It's like they're totally done. The shooting is done right after. Then there's the gap. Then we get the 10 or 13 or 15 episodes. And then there's the gap. Like they just finished writing season 4 of Discovery. They've been working on it since fall. Who knows when we'll see it aired? And by the time it's airing, before they get feedback on what season 4 looked like for Discovery, they've already would have started plotting 5 and probably writing. So this offset's kind of wacky. Now you're going to put the book folks into that. So it takes, I don't know. They always, Pocket used to look at me like they thought I'd churn something out in a month. And that wasn't even fiction. There's a few months to write, and then the turnaround, to actual print, and the whole, advertise, promote the book, get it into, do all the infrastructure of the distribution process, much less printing. So you've got that overlap. How fast are they to bring it into the TV canon? Occasionally it's the other way around. Sometimes somebody goes off on a book, and it's depending on where all those different processes are. Sometimes it's getting a little further down the line. In the very early days, right, when David Mack was writing the first Discovery novel, and everything was embryonic, and there was a lot of consulting back and forth. And yes, Dave will always have the satisfaction of having named some of the Georgiou's crew, if not on Discovery, or some above. Because writers are like gamers. They need details. We can't just call somebody security number 2 or planet ambassador or alien race. We need, a weird race. We need names, guys. We need details. So it depends. It depends how fast. In some weird ways, maybe it's 6 months if it's crucial. If a book has been written and it's at the approval stage, and maybe our friends in licensing know something that happened on the show, and they can tweak one word, or where one, planet name or a race or a character name. If that's used all the way through, they can at the very last stage, it doesn't affect the plot, but they can pop that in and know to match it to TV. So that's not even about the writer. That's why we have licensing approval folks. What are the reasons? It's not just to slow things down with notes. I'm kidding. I kid. So that was a big pile of who knows. But I don't, maybe sometimes 3 months, 4 months, 5 months. It's just weird. I haven't really seen close up the book process overlaid with the streaming system. I could tell you all about how long it would have taken before, and it would have also amounted to, did the book author actually have a close tie into the production, or were they having to go through channels? That's another thing, no matter how much those channels get accelerated, right? Hey, Christoph. I need Aaron here. On a timeline-based rewatch. Oh, that's convoluted because you're mixing live action and animated. Just got to animated's Magics of Megas 2. With near super beings at the center of the galaxy. Hey, they're just manipulating matter like Ardra did on Ventax too. With near super beings at the center of the galaxy, snipping things around it. Things around it weirdly felt like a mashup of Star Trek V: The Final Frontier and The Q. Could these ideas go so far back? Well, here's a story. When the pilot of Farpoint aired and Q made his appearance, I remember one of my friends from Okie fandom, we turned the TV off and people stood up and kind of looked at each other, and one of them says, "Gosh, a super being, could this be a Roddenberry show?" Because between the Metrons and Trelane, Q was at the time, as a one-off character, Q looked just like the latest in that line. So I don't know that you have to go to the animated series to do it. The animated series was more like bringing in bits. It was almost like a little bit of The More You Know, Saturday morning, early 70s, PSA, let's educate the kids in between not having so much violence. And that's a thing. Star Trek V: The Final Frontier, the last thing, as a Shatner story, the last thing that thing owes its any tie of development to is anybody paying attention to the cartoons from the early 70s, even though it was 15 years later. No one was looking back and forth. I mean, the most anybody would do by then would think about, as they did always, the events of yesteryear for young Spock and Amanda and Sarah. Other than that, nobody was paying attention to, in a big way, paying attention to the animated series. Gene was still alive, so he sure didn't want to go back there, and they were already officially kind of muting the animateds for the books, much less for what was getting on air by then. And there was already the push me pull you between Gene's camp and Shatner and Harv there as a third party. So yeah, it's just one of those things of after 50 years, after 30 years, 20 years, you're just going to repeat. You're going to repeat. Nobody was saying, "Ooh, let's do this as an homage to the Magics of Megas 2." It's just a wacky thing that people love to look at and point to, as Star Trek is full of after 470 hours. Actually, it's more than that now. Hey, howdy, Stephen. There we go. What day is Captain Picard Day? Why, thank you, John, and thank you, Marina. June 16th. There you go. Because that's the day. It has nothing to do with Picard's birthday. It's the day, the Stardate day converted to a calendar day from the episode, from the Captain Picard Day moment, which is kind of odd. In retconning, I know this exists, so I don't say this and then have all the ship nerds who are online getting to me. It could be the day he took command. It could be the day he was assigned command. Both of those days are out there because they've needed them for different stories. They may even be on the dedication plaques. And it's figurable. On the 1,000 Stardate unit per year, 00.0 being January 1, it's easy to figure those. Did you start the chat before the stream? No, actually, nope. I know, right? I know. It wasn't difficult to paint him. It was difficult to finish. And then difficult to finish getting it off. The doing was easy. It was just more and more and more and more. Yeah, there you go. The most meta. Actually, it was almost called the Magics of Meta 2, but they thought that was a little on the nose. Let's see. Hi Joe, is there a one-time only on TNG where Data alluded to a crew member and a same-sex partner spouse and how long they've been together? I've wanted to ask you this forever. You would think I would know. Maybe somebody else is going to pop up here in a minute. I know they had a habit of letting data go into some weird places per late 80s, early 90s, and they would cut him off mid-sentence. Like we talk about some cultures or species, you know, marriage or dating or sex habits or something, but it would just kind of leave off. It's kind of like, I'll see you with an unfinished limerick and raise you. And this could be, I want to say no, or maybe there was something that could be interpreted as a same-sex partner, spouse. It could be interpreted that way. I'm going to take a maybe, and maybe by the time I get it back around, somebody that's online will jump in. But you've made me, in fact, I'm going to make a note of this, and I will check that out. If nothing else, I might even use it in my... Oh, hi, Joe, by the way. I just realized is this your first time on Tuesdays Live? If I may even use that on the magazine column if we start again. Everybody's fascinated with this now. You imagine Lou Ferrigno getting some Hulk flashbacks. Did he do some Hulk jokes? Probably. I didn't, shackle myself to be with him for the hours and hours and hours it took. I'm sure, I only had the ones. Well, we had the entry scene. We had the transporting in, not the beaming out, but we had the beaming in scene. Transporter room, and then we had the dinner scene. Really, McCoy missed out on the. Well, I wasn't. Yeah, I was McCoy then. McCoy missed out on some of the action-packed scenes. Oh, Jared, this isn't fair. Other than LeVar, which Trek personality would I like to see take the helm of Jeopardy? Well, Bob Picardo would probably be great as a host, but he might get so snippy. Some of the contestants might, leap over the podium and come punch you. No, I'm kidding. Of course, there's never any malice in Bob's heart. It's always just for the moment. It's for the laugh. You mean permanently? Not get. A lot of them would be great guest hosts. Mm-hmm. Armin, Andy would be Andy Robinson. I think there's a little bit of Garrick would come through though with Andy, if he went through a run where nobody was getting questions right, he would get a little, a little annoyed at people. Oh, come now, can't you at least lie better than that? Kind of. I don't know. And happy Trekland Tuesday to you too, Justin. Is this a thing now? Happy Trekland Tuesdays? Have we made it a thing? Oh, Jesse. This is a sore spot with me. I was going to watch this last night and got hijacked. I'm trying to watch it as quickly as I can. I've been meaning to for days and days and days and days. It really kind of came out of nowhere, and then it was on Apple TV, and good on Paramount Plus for snagging it and bringing it over to the stable there. It makes a lot of sense there. I will be happy to share. In fact, that could well be a Trekland Tuesdays topic coming up, is my thoughts about Women in Motion and Michelle. I'm so glad this story, when you've been around more than 47 minutes in life, you forget that the things you went through need to be retold that's one of the reasons why I enjoy doing Trekland Tuesdays here, as well as Portal 47 and everything I do in Trek. Is you realize things. I mean, there was a point when I thought everything as fandom went on, and when the shows came back, or when we had the fallow years after 2005, and then when Trek did come back, there was a case of, everything that's old and musty and dusty, everybody knows all that. No, there's no who cares. And it was almost a reward to realize that no, we have new generations come along, and the internet is wonderful, but we don't IV off Memory Alpha, or name your poison. So it's good to do that, but you as a person who, as you will do eventually, when you live through it, you take it for granted. So the idea that Nichelle was out there, recruiting for NASA, and then sadly, as some of the space tragedies unrolled, the people that she helped recruit were some of the casualties, especially on Challenger. Oh, Judith Resnick and Ellison Onizuka and Ron McNair, woman, and Jewish woman, Asian American astronaut, Black American astronaut, African American. It was heartbreak. She was especially, the downside of having recruited is see those people be lost. But very proud of that, and I'm so glad this is kind of, as a documentary should, shining a piece of light on history for the moment, but also making sure it's on the shelf, and it's not being, we pulled sentences and paragraphs here and put it into a whole new title that's going to stand on its own, and even if it fades from active memory, it's there for somebody to always be able to find it, especially the way we have media today. So that's great. Here's an interesting one. Nathaniel, hey Nathaniel, how much leverage do writers have to fill in details not in canon when creating licensed works? You mean books and comics, I think, here, and even in nonfiction, when it's a nonfiction where we get to spice things in. Like there were some editorial decisions I made on stellar cartography. And sometimes you're given leeway. Sometimes you are given leeway, and you have to make a decision, because when you're doing nonfiction like that after the fact, and you're smoothing canon, and you come up with, oh, we got it here this way and here this way. And sometimes you follow exactly what's on film, and you hear later on from licensing that actually the writers have reconsidered something that was on air, and we want to evolve it this way. That's the kind of thing that drives our friends at Memory Alpha nuts. But as an old school canon gap filler, you always know you've got USPA before you have Starfleet, or USPA before the Federation even, and you look at what's the flow. You don't go, oh my God, we have conflicting data points. I love data points. Data points, Captain. Conflicting data points. If you're going to have a conflict, then fine. Number one, it's like triage. Number one, which is the overall arc of the, well, obviously Starfleet and the United Federation planets won out over USPA, United Air Space Probe Agency. So the thing is that you go with the flow of evolution, and hopefully it didn't flop around like the spelling of inoprovaline, which most people don't know unless you're looking at scripts, but oh my God. I love how we had pronunciation guides. I wish in scripts, at least in the Berman era, I wish there was a spelling guide at times. But who was script coordinating those scripts? Who didn't catch that? Yeah, looking at you, Lolita and Maggie, Juan. But good Lord, we've gone so deep, I've gotten off. If you're talking about scripts that way, you have a lot of leeway. If it's something really important, though, somebody's going to look over your shoulder. And a lot of times, script writers would put in details, and then at the last minute, not so much Michael and Jerry and Brannon, but Rick would pop in. Like some relative of his name would become the person's name, and not... oh, should I tell this? It's not a big story, but when Molly OBrien was first, not Molly, who was it? Oh, when Naomi Wildman was first being conceived on Voyager, that Ensign Wildman was going to be pregnant with them, way before it became the character, right, that Scarlett Palmer's played. But back when it was a plot point for Ensign Wildman, and the baby was born, we had friends, and Janet was assistant script partner. We had friends that had a daughter, had kids, and the daughter had died, very sadly, a teenager, And Janet said, can we name the baby for her? And the initial thing was fine, sure, fine. And by the time the script came out, though, it wound up being Molly, which is Rick Berman's daughter, which is fine. I mean, not Naomi, which was some link through it. And that's fine. That's showrunner, executive producer's prerogative. But it was wild to watch that, make it up the ladder until the last moment. But that's just one case, and there's tons of other times. Sometimes, the consultants come in and say, let's not do that, let's do this. The Joan Pierce folks. In the old days, Kellum DeForest. But they come in and say, for legal reasons, or maybe if you don't want a legal reason, or you want to avoid any hassle, let's not do this. One of the ultimates of that was that, Catherine Janeway, aside from being Nicole Janeway for 5 minutes, for Genevieve Bujold, that's her middle name, and that was one of her demands. But Catherine Janeway was going to be Elizabeth Janeway in the beginning, and then they found out that the economist Elliot Janeway's wife was named Elizabeth, and they didn't want to tread on toes there, and so it was Catherine all the way. And after the fact, Elizabeth Janeway found out about that, and she said, I would have loved for you to kept it Elizabeth Janeway. So it's an inexact science and wacky, and it's just the kind of thing that you have to have a Star Trek for anybody to care about this. When it's Fred's sitcom, nobody gives a flying F about it, and it's just one of those things that's lost in the ether. So sometimes, to answer your question, they can have all the leverage in the world because you never know when something is going to take off and come back, right? Sometimes right out of the gate, it's a big deal. To fill in details not in canon, meaning the thing that you're creating will be canon then. There's no precedent. And sometimes, and depending on the clout of the writer, obviously the showrunners get to throw it in there. If you're a junior writer on staff, not so much. And if you're talking about books and comics, it depends on if it's an active show, if it's a done show, like after all the Berman era was over. And even then, you never know when something will show up in 10, 12, 15 years and on TV and go back and massage that. It's a great now. They're as close as ever. And since things that are in real time will probably stand, or people will be very affected by them, fans are taking it all in. The creative staff on the shows is taking it all in. Certainly thanks to Kirsten and Beyer and everybody involved there. With Dayton's involvement and David Mack on the animated, with all that kind of flow, and you've got Aaron and Mohammed there science advising, and they're also aware of what's going by in the novels, because most of the novel writers know each other, and I mean people consult. They don't have to give the farm away, but people can consult on questions. So there is that. Let's see. I'm bogging down on too many questions. I thought this would be a dry run, guys. Wow, it's been a great day here. Hey, Marina. Marina too. As far as specifically non-fiction Trek books are concerned, if Eagle Moss calls tomorrow and says, Larry, you can pick any kind of project and we'll publish it, is there a reference type book out there that I would really like to sink my teeth into? Yeah. And I'm not going to say. I'll say there's one companion type book and one that bridges a gap between reality and background. How's that? And actually, Marina, I will be honest with you. Here's something I don't think I've even told the Portales. I've mentioned this, and I'm going to come back to a show on Tuesday. We have finally gotten back into a groove and a renewed commitment to get the Con of Wrath finished, my documentary. There are a lot of things I want to do, but there are so many projects that already take a bite out of the time for getting the Con of Wrath finished that I'm putting some things off. But I have 2 or 3 definite book ideas. Definitely mentioned them to a couple of different publishing, no green lights or okays, but definitely have the door open to doing some things. But I just want to get the documentary done first before I plunge into something else that I'm already not committed to, like visiting with you folks every Tuesday. Let's see. Hey, Jim. Ever thought of doing a podcast on Will Rogers? Will Rogers Jr.? You mean Will Rogers, the guy? Will Rogers Jr. was his son, and you could certainly do that, but it would not be quite as rich subject matter. Oh, yes. I would love, Jim, I did a one-man show of Will Rogers in high school and college. Yes, when I was probably, some would say, way too young to play him, but it was greatly influenced by James Whitmore's one-man show, Will Rogers USA. And Will is so, the 70s crowd, when I saw it live and it was on TV, there was a special on PBS and CBS re-aired it, or the other way around. The album was out and James Whitmore started doing his one-man tours. I saw him live in Oklahoma City, which was a great thing. But, at the time it was Vietnam and Watergate, and everything Will said, it was amazing to hear him talk from the 20s and the 30s about things that sounded very, and today, between the pandemic and our political mess, for the way the world is today, it would be so great to have some Will comments to illuminate that. And I keep wanting another one of those projects. I'd love to come and do my one-man show again, even if it's just in 15 or 30-minute bits out at the park, much less something more permanent. I would love to get that and revisit it. Something I haven't done since I was about 21, I guess. But a podcast, for a while, there was a cooperative podcast being done out of Claremore from Will Rogers Jr. College, which is right across the street from the memorial in Claremore. So the last thing I need to be doing right now is another podcast, but I would love to, I'd love to guest on one. I would love to do that. I would love to have the time to do one and bridge Oklahoma and California. Bridge the state park ranch out here. And once again, folks, if you are coming to LA, especially as we open up again, we're not open yet, and I think we just got delayed here in California past the June 15th. And whatever the science says, I'm fine. But when we are open for giving tours again at the house, I'd love to see anybody out there. In fact, let me know online if you're coming and you're a Trek fan. You could shock me in line. If it happens to be, I usually do Sundays, just because of traffic. It's easier to get up. It could, is it going to be 25 minutes to get there or an hour and a half? That's the thing for me. But I would love to do a podcast. I'd love to talk on a single one. I would love to have the time to commit to doing a weekly one. If I was like retired, that's the kind of thing I would do. I would just spend all my time researching Will and bringing him alive for a new generation. Mainly to show not just that, gosh, look at this guy being timely, but to show folks that, hey, this shit we're going through now, whatever the stripe of shit it is, we've been through something like this before. You do not need to be afraid. We've gotten through this before, and with even good humor, much less sanity. And I'm probably way behind the chat. This is starting to feel like Saturdays. There you go. The very first Discovery. Now, this is why I kind of still, even though there are a lot fewer of them, and they're much, much more well coordinated, and I know all the people writing them, this is why having novels with an ongoing active production is always a danger, no matter what your good intentions are. And they're a hell of a lot better now than they were. They weren't bad intentions, they were just non-existent intentions. They were just two different worlds, and how do you deal with that? And the writers know that. Everybody looked at the books as, and still do, I guess, as, it's to keep you, it's the snack to have between the film, the main course. And fortunately, a lot of the snacks are just as filling as the main course, to torture that metaphor for a good cause. Here you go. Zahir, do the writers of Discovery, Strange New Worlds, Picard, etc., Lower Decks, and Prodigy communicate to make sure the canon is consistent? Well, that's why they have joint. That's why Muhammad and Aaron are consulting on science with all the shows. That's why Dayton is consulting with all the shows as far as canon-y things, and David too. That's why our licensing. That's why they restructured license. That's why our good friend John Van Sitters is sitting where he is, And what's better is, guys, I know gals, this is hard to imagine, but sometimes the early days of something are chaotic, and once you get settled, what's that word? Oh, you get settled, and you know things going. There are art folks that don't know each other between Picard and Discovery, and the distance doesn't help. It's not like they're just across the street from each other at Paramount anymore. Some people are in Toronto, some people are in LA, and some people are scattered around working from home. But I've even made a couple of introductions of people, even in these baby days of knowing people with the new shows, just so they get in touch. And so part of that just has to happen. Sometimes it's led from the top, and sometimes there's enough to do at the top in the broad strokes that you're not, the little tiny details. But again, that's why I keep saying, the more time, that's what the well-oiled machine is. The well-oiled machine is not well-oiled when it first starts up. So, but they do to a big extent do this. And that, at the very, very, very top, and I know some people will hoot at this, but that's what Alex and the team do. They're all the writers are all pretty much in a same building headquarters over there. So there is some of that. And if people get into a warning, even if it gets out of the gate, if it comes down the line, if it's something, unless the whole premise of a story is based on something, but hopefully if it's just a detail in a line, it can get caught at somewhere along the way. What is this? Christoph, are you being devious here, or to make sure the canon is not consistent? Okay. I'm sorry. The toxic tuber alley is down the street. You're in the wrong office. It's just starting to feel like the argument clinic in here. Melanie, hi. Be finished within 1 week. Okay, not quite sure what you're saying. Oh, and here we go again. Sadly, Women in Motion is not available in Europe. In the UK, it's on Amazon Prime for $2. I'm so sorry, guys. That's a Paramount Plus fact. Hey, Chuck A. We met at Star Trek Las Vegas. I was a friend of Gordon Palmer. Oh, okay. Very good. And glad you made it here today and on Facebook. Yay. Well, let's try to do that again, Chuck. Thanks for coming by Trekland. Check it out. Check all the stuff out. Where are you here? Is it now official canon that Trelane is a Q, or is this just beta canon? Well, it was a lot of fun. William Campbell and John Delancey had a lot of fun with that. People have done bits on the page too. I don't think it's ever been addressed, but who knows what we may get into with Strange New Worlds, much less Lower Decks. Lower Decks has the ability to hop in. It's manic and spastic, but what that means to me is they have the ability to hop in anywhere and throw out a reference, and you think it's just because it's in 2380 or 81 now that some things will never get touched. Wrong. A lot of old Star Trek canon, as we saw. Beta 3, who thought? Landru? Although I wish the Landru voiceover had been a little more echoey. I guess that was a sign that he'd been unplugged in a lot of ways. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely, Stephen. Lots of super beings in TOS. And super aliens, I used to call them. And even early TNG. Space felt very overwhelming to us little humans. Ants, barely poking around the vastness of the cosmos. Exactly. And it didn't help when they showed up wearing Greek togas. Looking at you, Metrons. How nice of you to be adaptive like that for our understanding. There you go, Aquaberg. Aquatard. Still just beta from novel like Q squared. There you go. Yeah, but the finger snipping felt pretty Q specific. Well, now wait. It's the 60s. And a lot of that was what are you going to do? Have her twink his nose? That's Samantha. I Dream a Genie had the head boink. So let them have the Trelane flash, and if it's an, I don't think it was an homage. I think it was just, what are we going to do that's not Jeannie or Samantha, even 20 years later. Yes, he does. I didn't prepare it. I'm sure somebody will look it up. Here we go. Oh my God, look at this. I should have AMAs more often. Everybody's here. Wow. Hi, Rebecca. Hope everything's good across the pond over there. Peter David did great things with the Q. Yes, Aquatard. Okay. Cairo. Okay, Robert, you're just going to be all factual here. I personally find it illogical how they put 00.0 to January 1st as if it's a star date. There is nothing remarkable astronomically about where we put January 1. I know, it's just when they started off, when they crafted Next Generation with that 5-digit star date and said the first digit is 4. And this didn't make any sense. The first digit was 4 for the 24th century, because they wanted that to be in your head, that it was not Kirk's time. And the second digit was going to be the season. So everything from the first season is 4-1 something something something. And the other 3 digits move through the year. Well, if the digit for the year changes with a new season, they just adapted it to being, I mean, Mike Akuda started writing his Stardate memo where he told everybody, here's the calendar date and here's the equivalent Stardate. Because you've got 1,000 Stardates, you've got 365 days. So that's roughly 3 Stardate digits, single digits to a day, roughly, although your mileage may vary due to the local density of matter when traveling in subspace. Thank you, Gene, 1968. So basically the memo would come out, and now no one sat around and said, let's do the Next Generation Christmas show, so we'll make sure and have it at the end. That's not what happened. I just laugh at how all the big crises of local space, of our local space of the galaxy, tended to all happen over the Terran holidays, which is, you know, if the Borg invade, if they come out of, you know, J4, Jury 4, and attack Earth after attacking the Enterprise with the Borg Queen in command. I mean, not with the Borg Queen, with Locutus in command. It's because it's a season cliffhanger. So we're about to go from 4-3 XXX to 4-4 XXX on star dates. Well, that must mean it's the last week of December. So wow, what a New Year's party they did not have that year with Riker commanding the Enterprise. It's, you know, oh, the Klingon Civil War happens over the Terran Earth religious, semi-religious, cultural, generic holidays. It's kind of a funny thing. So you're absolutely right. There's nothing that, but then there's how did the Gregorian calendar come about? Ish, and then was adapted. How did a lot of things, why is Greenwich median the median for time zones? Because the Brits were the top dogs at the time, and, you know, that's why the galactic median for the 4 quadrants, why is it drawn from the center of the galaxy through Sol, through the Earth, through the solar system? Why not through Kronos or through 40 Eridani for Vulcan? Because we were the Brits at the time. So we got the spoils of dividing the line. And it had to be drawn somewhere. I really didn't plan that. Let's see. Okay, everybody's busy now. Busy now trying to get women in motion overseas. So good luck. Yes. Hi, Just Genus Art. Facebook. Hi, first time with us. Welcome, if you are. But yeah, Picard Day is just the day the classroom student chose to have their showcase. Okay, so we've totally removed all big picture. So then see the inquiring background nerd would want to know if the classroom on the Enterprise D did it that way every year. And I'm even trying to think, I don't know what the star date for Generations is, but did they ever get a chance to do it again? Because that was 7th season, I believe. 6th, if not 7. Oh, you made your own Stardate Scale with the first airing of Trek in the U.S. and make it a straight 1,000 units per trip around the sun. Yes, it is. Well, what's a hassle, Cairo, with the star dates is the whole thing about going from 4 digits to 5 digits, and people trying to set episodes in the 2420s and like halfway between original and next gen, where I think it's totally ripe for having a new series. But in the BC era, the B/C era, whether it's the Enterprise B and C or not, just in that era, there's it's problematic because some days somebody's going to have to canonize how and why and when stardates went from 4 digits to 5 digits, which is kind of a wacky nut to get into. That might be tougher than Klingon foreheads. Yes. Hi, Melanie. Yeah, I'm sorry about that. We talked all week about how we couldn't do a show when we forgot to tell the world. Dr. Ali was on a vacation with a family member, and it's not a show that one of us can do by ourselves. And he could do it more without me, as has been shown for like 5 minutes at a time. But if one of us is totally wiped out, we can't do a live show Saturday. But now we've done things like have watch-alongs on other days or had other shows on other days. And the week was so messed up for him and me both that we could never work in a time that made sense to have an audience with us. And we want to do it live. We could just record something. But even if a few people can join us live, because nothing is the same as that time on Saturday, unless it's the time on Sunday. And usually, if Saturday's wiped out, Sunday is wiped out too. So I apologize. We didn't really say so until Friday. That was not our plan to tease everybody. But we will be back. We will be back next Saturday. In fact, you do not want to miss next Saturday's show. It's going to be a very special one. And that's all I will say. Okay, everybody? Yep. We did not say no show last week until Friday evening. And that morning. So I apologize, everybody, if we disappointed you too. Please forgive us and come back this week. This week is a very special one. Let's see. Well, there you go, Christoph. Back to star dates. As long as it's a year, you got to start somewhere. There you go. There you go. Aha, Captain Calvin Cat. You remember reading a behind-the-scenes book in which was said that there would have been one scene in which Wesley said to Data that he loved him. Was that actually written? Okay, just knowing the characters and where they were, Wesley was not gay, and I think that would be platonic. I don't know what you're getting at here to prove something, but even if that were true, and it could very well have been, because they love making Wesley the innocent until suddenly realize, quit making him an innocent. He's 16, 18, but that was doing nothing to grow the character after the first year at least. I don't really remember that off the top of my head. Maybe somebody else does. That I've learned not to say never, never. It also depends on where you read it and who was saying it. So that's the source and how, does that source, do I know they've got a book of notes or they've got a box of tapes somewhere or is it somebody, is it from Starfleet Intelligence blog? The source is part of that too. If you tell me where you saw it, but you can't remember, I'm curious now. But so many things, first drafts get wiped out 2 months before a final draft is done. So to say that something was in a scene and taken out, it could be one of 47 steps along the way. It's not like there's one draft and then it changes for the one they shoot. If you look at the opening page, I should do a Tuesdays Live on that process. In fact, I could have done that today. Exactly how, because that's one thing that hasn't really changed. You can look at a 60s script and a 90s script and a script from today, and they may have been output from Mimeo to copier to digital, printer, PDF, but that's one thing that the good old script color wheel is safe. Thank you, Rose, for coming by. Hey, Mary, have I heard any rumors about guests at the official convention in Chicago in April next year? No, just because a lot of things are holding up on timing and all that. But once it gets there, and once the announcements come, and some of this is timing about the announcements and not really about the guests themselves. But once things happen, it'll be, all the live. It's an official convention, and all of the actual shooting shows in production have a huge interest, and CBS has a huge interest in getting stars of the shows and the upcoming guest stars who might be in the season arc that you haven't seen before, and the shows that haven't debuted before, and the voice talent that you don't see their faces, but you're only getting to see them on some. There's a lot of vested interest in getting all the and that's 4,700 people right there from the active cast of the actual shows, and then we've got all the legacy cast that people love to see for the millionth time. And what they're doing now and how they interact with each other and what they can come up with and the special things they do. You'll see an awful lot of the same folks and probably some new ones too. And agents are always, especially agents of guest stars, they're always trying to cycle around and get their people out there too. So there'll be a little bit of corporate philosophy, and the licensing oversight of Reed Pop will look a little different than it did with Creation in some ways, just because every organization's different and the locales are different, and the people coming the East Coast may feel like it's a lot easier to get there now than this. But don't get too cozy, because it'll change. It won't be in Chicago the year after that, according to the current plan. So it's like any rumors about the guests that I would say it's just pretty much who you've seen already, plus a lot of new. Makes sense. Apparently they are going for a 3-day convention. It's certainly not 5. I'm trying to remember if it's 3 or 4, what they've announced. But it's not a 5-day. So there's that factor. The days will be crammed, I'm telling you. Okay. That's in Germany, your quiz show, Quiz Duel. And you'd love to see Sir Patrick in one of these quiz shows, Captain Calvin. And when his team is asked who is answering, he'd say, "I am Locutus," which means I speak for the Borg. Joe. Okay. Many-time viewer, first-time questioner. Right. And still not live meeting. We need to get Lee to repair his transporter and get us both beamed into the same place. Will Wheaton on Jeopardy would be hilarious. Yes, it would, all you YouTube folks. Speaking of YouTube folks, look at this. Hey, Mike McDevitt. Yeah. Yes. And the Outcast 5 years later, was the answer for that. Thank you, Mike McDevitt. This is what I was trying to remember. There is a reference to Andorian marriages being groups of 4, which novels later interpreted as 2 males, 2 females. Right. The gender class, the unique gender system of Andorian. And again, guys, that's a perfect example of texture, not trivia. Although it wasn't really a conflict in, canon continuity points. It was like, let's take this wackiness and make it something different. Let's make it texture. There you go. Oh, here's a question. Besides the Con of Wrath, what else is coming to Larry's world? Well, there's some things, you say don't knock for Micah. But hopefully these 2 big documentary projects, you'll see at least a few seconds of me in the Voyager documentary. I mean, I'm not producing either one, but I sat for many hours for the Center Seat, which is an 8-part from the Cage roots through the end of Discovery. So no Enterprise and no Kelvin movies, and maybe they're saving that for a part 2, and no current era, no Kurtzman era shows. So or in the fan space in between the fallow years, maybe. But hopefully that. the Con of Frat, that's enough. And then, twice a week on live stream here and the podcast, the Trek Files. We have some great guests coming up on the Trek Files. We're doing a hiatus. This is our first week hiatus, and there's already 3 or 4 folks. We were racing to see if any of them would be at the end of this season, so they're going to be at the beginning of next season. So that's a full plate right there. I'm really, really trying to get back to the dock and get it done. So can you ask me this like in a year? But thank you for asking. In any case, thanks. Yeah, the Will Rogers one-man show is going to have to wait. Okay, I'm going to let the Europeans hash out VPNing. Oh. Now in the times of bloopers and DVDs, you know what I've never seen, the legendary ad-lib from Patrick. I am locutus aboard. Ever thought of buying a Pontiac? Was that filmed or just happening in rehearsal? I don't know. I really don't know. There are so many things that we look at as, oh, come on. Look, we didn't have phones on camera. We didn't have a phone in everybody's pocket until the Enterprise era. And if you had a phone, you had a camera on set back in the, I wish we had just more photos besides the set photos. We're lucky to have, not only to have had them, but to have them survive, because so many people took slides home, and now who knows where they are. Back in the days of 35 millimeter slides, back in the days of, everything being a slide, it was very easy to slip those out of the sheets. Or take them away for honest purposes, and then nobody tracked that down. And a lot of one-off photography is gone, or in sitting in boxes in people's houses. Much less something like this being caught on film, and if it wasn't saved in the blooper reel, or like Melinda Snodgrass having that extra scenes that, she was sent a tape for the whole rough cut because she was the writer, and she kept it, but most of the time those rough cut tapes were trashed long ago. So to find, the original... I remember going in and seeing an editor from time to time. If I was going to interview an editor, I know one time there was a DS9 where, and if they could do this, they would do it. Directors and DPs, directors of photography, and editors, everybody knew it's far cheaper to shoot up front, right? It's a little bit like the measure twice, cut once. It's like as long as you're not wasting time, shoot a few more feet on the front end rather than come to the end. It's much easier to trim a show than to go back and reshoot extra footage. And if a show was running fast, or if something collapsed, and a lot of times you would, we miss it because the prop people and the costume people and all the set folks who were in the old days taking digital still do. You'd be, say, on DS9 on a promenade scene, and the camera comes in and does a wonderful pan across some of that stuff they're spending money on and you hope gets on camera, right? All the extras with makeup and wardrobe and some of the back set and some of the set dressing and just the atmosphere that's being paid for. And then the camera finally finds whoever's speaking comes into the scene. Well, that was great, unless it slowed the show down. But that was all that leader that the editor could cut to whatever he needed, fade up on this part here. Maybe it fades up halfway through that pan. And you lost those first 3 or 4 seconds, and it's what the scene needed, or it's what fit. And better to cut that than to cut, dialogue or whatever. And if you did it, oh, look, here's some wonderful... So a lot of those kinds of things are accidents if you got them. So the idea that now it would be lovely to have those extra few seconds of pan footage. Maybe somebody in an extra in an alien costume that we never got a good shot of what the alien looked like. But that footage is long gone unless it went to a tape and somebody held on to it like Melinda did for The Measure of a Man. And then 20 years later hops up and says, I have this extra bonus. Well, now it's gold. Nobody cared then. Now it's gold. Nobody cared then but Melinda and, Brent Spiner's mother. Something. This was Tuesday's, it was butchered last week, but the privilege of timing. The privilege of time in history. I missed this. Hey, Narda. Hello, down under. Out back, lady. Our gal. Do I think it's possible and a good idea to try to ever cross over characters from the Kelvinverse to the Prime Universe? Well, that would suddenly give a purpose to the Kelvin universe. No, sure, they've already hinted at it. So apparently, Michelle and Alex and the gang at Discovery, in their far future format, want to look back on all this now with some hindsight. And who knows? They could totally. I mean, they've opened that door. You're saying, do I think it's possible and a good idea to do that? It's possible. As a famous dead Vulcan once said, anything is possible in science fiction. You think it's a good idea? If it fits the story, I can say it as good as the writers on a payroll can. If it fits the story, sure. I would rather people be open to that than to be shut down to it, which is what's happened over a lot of the years. There were prejudices by those making choices against bringing up, dead original series material or whatever. So we've now got an openness to #use the universe. And I'm much more open to that. That makes it more real, as long as it's not totally pandering to fan service. But we've come so far not close to that really happening, despite what some people say. Since I was just answering your question, Aquatarg. Aquatarg, do I know you? Anyway, that you're on Twitch is amazing. What a powerful woman with an amazing life. Yes, Nichelle Nichols was the featured guest at the first Star Trek convention you ever went to as a kid in the 90s. And then later during her final farewell tour. Yeah, I mean, one of the things the pandemic took from us that we'll never get back, I mean, maybe something can still be done in the next year, but I don't know. 2 years later. But the fact that we were all robbed of Nichelle's, the cherry on top of her farewell tour, but that convention here in LA, that was going to be something. I really missing that. And some of the things planned around it, too. Nathaniel, canon gap filler. Is that recommended on the AMT models? Well, in my world, the idea and the phrase is almost as old as the AMT models. So I've been gap filling. That was my word for it. Before I ever heard the name retconning, gap filling was... Yeah, canon smoothing and gap filling. That's what I called it anyway. But then again, I thought I was the only one who cared about this stuff in the 80s and 90s. And then I found, through the magic of having your letter reprinted in the Best of Trek, then I found out there were at least 6 or 8 other people in the world that cared. And I was amazed. I was amazed. I had people to write to. There were actually 8 of us that cared about this stuff. And yeah, I have those letters. There's a book I should do. It's just go back and collect some of my Well Committee letters and responses and personal mail from them. I should have a book on Jeff Mandel and my stellar cartography, star charting correspondence. Yeah. Okay, questions. Captain Calvin, you're full of questions here. Okay, we've been at it for like an hour and 15. Today, Germany re-aired The Lights of Zetar, but okay. How many memory planets are out there? Don't know. Mirror Universe version has Memory Omega. Is that supposed to sound ominous, though? This is the end-all and be-all of information. Was there supposed to be an actual Memory Omega? Not really. I don't, I think everybody connected with assembling Lights of Zetar, and by Lights of Zetar, we're talking about Memory Alpha as the library, the planetoid library for the entire Federation. Just having it all in one spot, even if you aren't going to have control as a 50 years later, but 10 years earlier plot point, even then, it seems weird to have all your information, like the Library of Alexandria. If it's looted and burned, then you've lost the originals. So maybe there was a memory beta, but then do you have a system? If you have a lot of them, is that just your numbering system versus the fact that memory alpha is the prime and memory beta is the backup? It's not lesser than, it's just number 2 with a number 3 and a number 4 to follow. But I don't think, it was, guys, it was the originals. I mean, Calvin, it was the original series. There wasn't a lot of, okay, when we do the next episode of this, and when the third series from now revisits this idea, no one's thinking that way. So there was a little bit of that done in the animated series, because like the animated series was like, oh my God, this might extend further, and we have to have we're going to draw some logical arcs. Now the books, well, that's, everybody's got hindsight by then, and yeah, everybody's playing with it. And of course, Memory Alpha got used for the wiki, and now all the stages. I hope people know that. I hope Memory Beta, Memory Gamma, used for the licensed books, and then for the licensed games, comics, everything else, as we go down the ladder, and then just fan creation of content, whatever we're down to by then. Memory Delta, Memory Epsilon. But I don't think so. I don't know we have qualitative proof. Jean Larissette, who wrote? No, that was Sherry Lewis. And Sherry Lewis has left us. I would have loved to have asked Sherry Lewis if her intention was, or if Sherry Lewis even came up with Memory Alpha and that wasn't a rewrite from Fred Freiberger. Oh, here we go. We're going to populate Jeopardy now. Thank you, Zahir. You want to see Brent on Jeopardy, at least as a guest. Have a celebrity. Have a Trek night on Jeopardy, right? Ashley Judd, Alexander Siddig, Anthony Rapp, Saniqua, Anson, Jeffrey. I'll stop now. Oh, don't let me stop you. Okay, and I'm probably way behind on chat, guys. I might as well have had a topic at the beginning. Yeah, if there were that many, that's a thing we can say now, and somebody can, the Discovery writers or the Strange New World, much less Picard, are perfectly, or Lower Decks, are perfectly able to come along and canonize that, make it canon. Are there more than one, and how many, and all of that? If Christophe Lavard does host, they'll have plenty of Trek guests. Yes, indeedy. Hey, Daniel, CO, I remember you. Thank you for stopping by. I'm probably way behind. I'm probably as way behind as if I had done a topic at the beginning. But thank you for stopping in. Let's see. Yes, that's one of the reasons. Ron Moore they were wanting to call the ship the Valiant, kind of the nature of DS9, but they did not want to have 2 V ships. This is what timing does. Nobody watching these shows decades from now on a streaming, much less off a disc, no one's ever going to connect that up. Same way they didn't, our show on Voyager was delayed because of this reason, this reason, this reason, this reason. That doesn't mean a hill of beans to anybody past the original airing, but the original airing is what's paying the bills. It's just amazing to think of those kinds of situations. But totally true, yes. That's why this crazy fake news, what is it, the Vianon? About the Defiant was really named the Valiant. Well, yeah, in the early sketches, some of the, I think John Eves or one of the other artists did a sketch calling it the Valiant at the beginning. Oh, yay. Well, this is going to be amazing, Glenn, if we've had great audio and video today, because after last week, I spent probably 5 or 6 hours trying to clean it up for YouTube for the re-edit. And we found one little trick that may have been, nobody wants to say it's the silver bullet, but if you're saying that the stream has been great today, we may have found the silver bullet. I'm going to let it go a few more weeks before I come out, and we're going to do further testing and peer review before I come out with a definitive statement there. Absolutely true, Cairo. Fred came up with the word Umox, OOX, by the way, or OOM, which he thought would just sound alien enough, and it did stick, no pun intended. Yes, indeed. Oh, thank you, CO. Daniel. You heard me on Inglorious Trexperts. Yes, Mark finally had me on, although we were supposed to be I was supposed to do a show about a year ago about nonfiction writing in the classic era. and it fell apart. So I thought maybe they were just miffed at me. No, I'm kidding. They have tons of people to come on. So educational and entertaining. Well, Daniel, that's all I'm about. So welcome to Trekland. You should jump into the portal if you really want to go deep diving. And a question: you just picked up the season 1 Blu-ray set. You enjoy it? What are my thoughts on it? It got scary toward the end. I thought it was maybe the best single. And yes, I know we have short seasons and long seasons. We have old traditional 26 episode seasons. Now we have the short season. But I thought it was the most well-formed season of a Star Trek show in a first season out of the gate since the original series. And maybe, thinking of how the original series evolved, maybe even better than the original series. And I've heard from more than, this is a far way to go, but I've heard many fans say it's their favorite of the Kurtzman era shows. And I've had some people say it's their favorite Star Trek of all now, because it celebrates all of them. So if you get past, the animation, that was a hurdle for people, and the manic pace of it, that was a hurdle. And some of the mocking tone, but it's mocking in the family. It's not an outsider. It's jokes inside the family, not outside the family, which makes it all better. So glad you enjoyed it, and glad you came by again. Yay. No, I can tell you, Christoph, Portal 47 Euro is not tomorrow. It's next week. You're trying to trick me. The document has it next week, June 16th. Yes, I will be on the road tomorrow. That was convenient timing, or part of the reason for the timing of the road trip. Yes, European midday Ask Dr. Trek Roundtable in Portal 47 is tomorrow. That's for all the members. That's not a public thing. That's part of your Portal 47 monthly package. Thank you, Marina. Thank you. Well, I've had positive vibe on a couple of things. I'll tell you one thing. It is so nice to have multitude of nonfiction places you can go to now, rather than everything at Pocketbooks, and everything was run by the guys in the back shop. So if you're enjoying the explosion of formats and ability, like everything from stellar cartography and the fold-out maps to just having fold-outs in some of the ship from the ship porn from Eagle Moss and all of that, thank the liberalizing of the nonfiction book licensing to more than just Pocketbook. Nothing on Pocket, but that's like a very New York, buttoned down, old school way of doing things. And the last 10, 15 years, we've had this explosion of people being creative on a budget where it didn't cost them too much. It didn't cost you too much. And that's been an incredible, and for a lot of, Star Wars and a lot of other fandoms too, having the same kind of revolution. I just answered your question. Okay. Good deal. Good deal. You meant senior. I kind of thought you did. Okay. Oh, there you go, Christoph. A warning. After six months, I answered your first Trekland Tuesdays Live. You became a Portal 47er. No regrets. Thank you for that last line. I was inducted into the cult, and well, this is fun. This is immediate. Of course, we've added cameras in 4 years, but that bogs down, as we saw on Life Support Live, that bogs down the bandwidth, and even globally, it bogs down the bandwidth sometimes. Hey, Captain Calvin, you're writing lots of query letters to pitch letters to be a journalist, and no one wants you. How do you deal with rejections like these? It's going to happen. Sometimes it's like grabbing for a horse on the merry-go-round. You may get your hand bashed, but eventually you'll find some. I never heard this phrase until I heard Jerry Taylor say it. You'll find some purchase. You'll be able to grab on, and once you find your person or your way in, it used to sound very suspicious for people to say, "Oh, well, to get ahead here," whatever it was, whether it was Hollywood or the local plumbing industry. It's like, well, you got to know somebody to get in. you can be great at it, but you got to know somebody to get in. Well, that's kind of true. And if you're wanting to get in, lots of other people are. So there's some structure to limit, to separate the chaff from the wheat. So, if you're that good, the world depends on you to keep trying. Your heart and your ability being there. Plus, all the time you're trying, you're getting better and better. And then sometimes, you get a lucky break. A lot of times you get your foot in the door. The problem is what are you going to do once you get in the office? You hear a lot of people say that. Once a lot of writers would say, I got my foot in the door to pitch. And that was what the whole mission was. And then I got in the office and realized I wasn't ready to. So make sure that you're ready to back up what it is when you do, because eventually you will find somebody, you will strike up a conversation, you will cross paths, you will come across as intelligent, you will have your product with you to show a video or a script or something or an outline. You'll have it on you with you. It's, hey, we're I started to say we're metric, we're digital. You can sling it to somebody. You can, tap phones and slide them your PDF outline or your video, your CG sample. Keep hanging in there but research. Don't only find out what people want and try to match exactly what they want, like a docking collar, be a perfect fit, but then find out where they hang out in real life when you can do that, but also digitally. And social media is great for, don't push it. This is like dating. Don't push it. Don't push. But if you come into a natural conversation, if you can find several engagements that show you're intelligent, that you're not a newbie, and you're not a stalker, and if less is more in your personal engagement, much less in your crafting, those are all ways. And look, it's a lot easier now than it used to be. People are used to engaging on Instagram and Twitter, especially. Those are great points, but you can't do it all in one. Don't do a belly flop dive. It's gotta be nurtured. There's a lot of nurturing, but there's a trust factor here and a display factor. If you're auditioning, you got to show your wares. And if you're trying to find customers, you've got to show your branding. It's a two-way street. So anyway, hopefully some of that will be handy. On one hand, some of that it may sound obvious, but on the other hand, it's sometimes the most obvious is what we need to have repeated, directly to us. So maybe that's some help, Captain Calvin. But hang in there. If your heart is in it, keep working on it. Okay? And somewhere, at some level, some way, you will find a way. But it never hurts to keep improving. Keep working and keep improving. Oh, what I like to see in the original series crew show up on lower decks, like if old McCoy or J.J. McCloy. Hey, Stingray Travel. Who would I like to see voice D again? Well, I might not agree with his politics, but for 20 years, I thought Gary Sinise would be a great older McCoy. I saw him on a commercial the other day. I still think I still think he has kind of a light, but I think if Gary Sinise got down and growled a little and did a little more Southern, I think he would look good. And acting-wise, he's got the eyes, the bags, and the hair. And he has the acting chops. I don't know if he knows a thing about Star Trek, but that's who I always kind of wanted to see. But voicing for animation, well, I can do it. I don't know. I haven't thought about animation voice. I haven't kept up with a lot of animation voice people. And actors, I don't know. It feels like we've been watching an awful lot of British TV lately. That's why For All Mankind was kind of a relief. Anyway, that's a good question. Who would you like to see voice D? Or Jimmy? I mean, I would say let Chris do it if it's Jimmy. One, you were saying here, William, heard from Chris Hunter, that he was hoping Stranger World would do different story each episode like TOS. I think that's what Anson said the day they announced was the big panel. Was it Comic-Con New York last year? And I think Akiva has been saying that same thing. I think that's one of the world's worst kept secrets. And I think that's all in reaction to arc story seasons and keeping up with the Joneses that marked, Discovery and Picard. Wow, Francesco, hello from Italy. Ciao. My Italian's a little rusty because it's been about 10 years. We were supposed to be in Italy for a convention in March when the pandemic was falling, and you all were, especially Northern Italy, was having such a horrible rough time in the early days. We were debating whether to not go to this con in Southern Italy, and then the decision was made for us because it was canceled. And I hope we can get back to that sooner or later. But yes. I have 15, 20 years of Italian. I can quote music terms at you. Let's see. Dici al fine. Al degreto non troppo. Okay. Okay, Melanie. We got you. Let's see. Oh, Q scared. Not Q squared, but Q scared. Yeah, that would be that would have to be a parody of Q squared, I would think. This is exactly, Christoph, if you remember, this is, I think, not just the Portales, I've said this on Tuesdays Live, my whole theory of the 6th or 7th new Star Trek will be a radical idea of a bright, happy crew and a bright, happy ship with an adventure every week. Because it's such a radically new idea. People that were really down on Discovery in the early days. And then when Picard evolved and we saw what was going to be happening. Yeah. There you go. It's not just another New Year's Eve. Another night like all the rest. Mm-hmm. Oh, very cool, Rebecca. Your captain, your second officer, and you're the first officer. You all spend an hour on Zoom looking at my maps to place your space station. Well, cool. Well, my maps are basically, they're my maps as evolved from Mike's basic layout and then Jeff's setup in the maps book in 2002, fleshing them out based on his work on Enterprise at the beginning, when everything was pulled back. The travel of NX-01 was close in. And all the Vulcan star charts you saw were very heavily affected by real astronomy and real stars that would have Class M worlds. That's where they're going, and yada yada. And then everything we've done the last 2 editions has taken that and expanded it and updated it. So you're seeing, and then those maps are what's on the walls in Discovery and Picard. So and we actually had one Andrew Jarvis joined us on Portal 47 to talk about that. So he was kind of tickled to meet somebody who had a hand in putting all that together, that they very lovingly, aside from one boner on Discovery, very lovingly kept going. So so I always try to say they're not my maps. I'm like the keeper of the flame for now and expander of the flame. And because that was the first thing, that was the second thing out of the gate that I glommed into when I was a kid fan. First was, where are all these missing pages in the tech manual? Here, I'll make them. And second was, let's collect all these stars and planets from the concordance and make them make sense. And, the tech manual did. Oh, these don't make sense. Oh, something else is coming along. Oh, I'll jump in and see about it. I'll offer my thoughts. Anyway, but once again, hi, Francesco. And good on you, Rebecca. Good on you. Let's see. Oh, Christoph, how far behind we are on the chat already? Yeesh. Oh, look, it's been an hour and a half. Yes. Nathaniel, did they ever figure out how the 26-hour Bajoran day worked? Were there 2 extra hours of sleep or 2 extra hours of holodeck? I think that was just one of those, well, if people have been adapting to gravity and, lack extra or less than Earth normal sun, I would think that the time, I think it would be a lot the way it is working at the poles. Like in Alaska, when the midnight sun, when you have sun more than part of a day, the normal amount, or less than, and some days you have all sun and some days you have no sun. It's dark all day long. And that's an annual thing that you get used to, and it affects the body. But I would think it would be the same way, only with time. And I bet that's 2 hours, so that's an extra 40 minutes spread out in thirds. So instead of being on shift for 8 hours, you're on shift for 8 hours and 30 minutes. But it'll be like metric and American. It's like if you go back and forth and back and forth and back and forth, you'll go crazy. You just jump into the time scale and go with it. Now, the station is not attached to Bajor. So, I mean, were they in stationary orbit, or were they in geosynchronous orbit when they were, in the pilot? I have to go back and look at that. But when the station is just stationary, fixed in place, and maybe making a gradual solar system orbit, it doesn't have to be. But since most of the people on the station are tied into, that's their biorhythm, that's why. But yeah, they're gonna match the hosts. They're gonna be nice guests and not force the Bajorans, of whom, plus all the aliens who are coming and going, if they're there for any length of time, they adjust. What's the hour schedule on? We never did hear what the Cardassia Prime day was. I bet someone's figured it out, or it's in something somewhere. Let's see. Oh, Jesse says maybe the BC era was a war front for the Temporal War. Oh, that's too easy. Besides, what does that mean? The temporal, I mean, you'd better be prepared to spend a lot of budget money to do a temporal war show, because you're bopping around in different eras, and you're just, I don't know. It's so mind-boggling. How do you wrap your head around? I'd rather talk to a gaggle of prophets than have to write a temporal war story. How would it make sense? I don't know. 2 more hours at Quark's Bar. Yes. Will Wheaton started Pride Month. Well, start. Told him they had a crush on Wesley. And that's awesome. That is awesome. Well, Memory Beta, just so you know, Mike McDevitt, says Picard was born. The bioscreen in Conundrum, when Mike Akuda did the bioscreens in Conundrum, there are birth dates, there are years of the Academy, there are parents' names, there's all kinds of bio details that come from the Conundrum bioscreens, and a couple of them got tweaked later, but for the most part, that's what's hung up. And sometimes he used the birthdays of the actor for the birth date, and I forget if that's Patrick's or not, but I haven't lived and delved and been paid for that in a long time. But it's a lookup away. But yes, I knew that Picard Day, Captain Picard Day, is not Picard's birthday. And somebody will jump on here anyway in a second as I come up. Okay, we'll talk about Wesley and Data and the love thing. Yes. Good, we got that. Message from the future, it's coming, the end of the chat is coming. Yes. Yes, Nathaniel, that makes Jared future guy, and we should all be very afraid. Okay. Thank you, Christoph. I thought it was a 3-day event. And that's very smart, partly because it's Reed Pop's first after mission. It's the first big thing after. It's the first one to test the waters. It's the first official con after the pandemic. We'll see where things are at that stage, what the global travel picture looks like. for different countries. So it's a conservative first step, and it makes a lot of sense. It makes a lot of sense. Oh, look, I can become famous by buying followers from a guy on Twitch. A guy or maybe a troll. Hi, Rusty, one of our Patreons and a backer of the Con of Wrath, big time backer. You can vouch for boxes of slides ending up in people's homes. This is a little box that I've had sitting here to go through that's been sitting over here for, I don't know, 12 months, 15 months, something to that effect. Sorry. Let's see. Let us see. We do need to get to the end of the chat though soon. See, Captain Calvin, you're calling this a crossover. Papa Kirk, George Kirk, showing up in Strange New Worlds. Una saying he looks like Thor. Oh, that kind of crossover. Okay, actor crossover. I was going to say, Papa Kirk showing up on Strange New Worlds is just using the universe, but the actor. Don't look for that to happen, by the way. I don't think they'd want to spend the entire budget of the whole season of TV on Chris Hemsworth's salary. Hey, Alan Laska, I'm glad to see you there. Yeah, yep. Oh, hi, Jesse, that's you. You are Aquatard. You're doing the Facebook, YouTube, Twitch multi-platform streaming thing. And are you learning anything that will help improve the world? Hi, Thomas. Boy, everybody is popping in. We're having a little bit of a Con of Wrath reunion here. Yes, I'm sorry. I know I forget the very root, but now I know. Is there a museum of sorts for Star Trek memorabilia? Well, there was not standalone per se. You had a little bit of that with the old museum's experience, but some of that was built fresh. You have the touring museum that goes around. There's exhibits that CBS has, that licensing has to go into tour shows, museum pieces and cases. You had the collection that was up at the EMP museum. EMP museum. I should say Peter Allen and Peter David. What's his face's museum in Seattle, which is now going. I haven't been up there since it's all been discombobulated or being reimagined or whatever. Alan, I love the stamp idea. It just needed to start like 3 years ago. But yes, I'm all for pushing it. Sure. Memory Omega, the fanfic memory, that would be. There'd be thousands of fanzines, paper and all digital now. Very true. The Iconians, the Takan Empires, and the Sphere data. Let's not forget the Sphere that is now in the Discovery's memory banks. Thank you. Thank you, Jared. I appreciate that. I'm also trying to pick it up a little bit, too. You thought V'ger was the first ship starting with a V? I don't even think of V'ger as a ship. I think of V'ger as a creature. Well, Melanie, you need a female guest host of Jeopardy. Voyager. We had a female guest host of Voyager. Well, keep thinking. That's a good idea. Yeah, I'm getting the early bird special for dinner. Let's see. No, I'm going to get out for lunch, is what it is. And yes, it's 2:49. Oh, we're way behind. Oh, Mayin Bialik is hosting it. Yes. Let's see. That's the Jeopardy. Okay. Gates. Okay, Gates. Dinner. Yes. Apparently the stream's been great. I may have stumbled into what was the problem all along. Yes. Let's see. Captain Calvin, you say you've got no problem with mocking. You have a problem with gross out humor. There you go. Okay. We've got a lot of great conversations happening. Oh, thank you, Cairo. Speaking of the portal, you just watched the recording of Andrea today, and it's great. So good, someone can still tell stories from that time. Yeah. Andrea, for the second time after 2017, Andrea Kindred, who went by Andy Richardson and got talked about at times, she's also been in she'll be in a couple of documentaries and books coming up too. So much less her own book is coming, everybody, and I'll be talking about that soon to help her out there. Let's see. Yes, but Andrea Kindred is great. Rebecca, you're good. European midday Ask Dr. Trek is next week. You're clear for tomorrow night. You're good. You're good. Last question for the day, you promise. This has been a great day for questions. This has been an actual question day. Well, aside from 2 or 3 of the sidebars, but that's going to happen. That's a myth. Did I read the Star Trek Prometheus trilogy by these German guys? I did not. Sounds vaguely familiar, but it sounds like it was a fanzine. And was it even I never heard of it, but was it ever English? I don't know. But to answer, yes. Hey, Jared, I know you have a new life, but hopefully it'll be a life with some security to it. And we will love having you back in the portal. And meanwhile, I totally appreciate having you around here and on Life Support Live. Daniel, you find Lower Decks very refreshing. I think, like that was weird. Hello? There we go. Yeah, of course it's 24/7 humor, but then again, you get to the end of the season and you get a lot of pathos. It's very, what would that be, MASH-like in the way that they mix overwhelming comedy and then find some very dramatic, serious moments there at the end that surprise you. Yes, okay, we've got Rebecca's game night all figured out. Let's see. Oh, some little writing advice, pitching advice there from Cairo. That's good. You need to contact me for some contacts because I'm not giving you mine. Mine have done very well over the years. Keep improving. Yes, keep working. Keep working your craft, whatever you're doing. Acting, writing, CGI, prop building, whatever, cosplay, whatever it is. Hey, now there's a campaign I can get behind. Damn it, I am an actor. Yes. Okay. There you go. That story. Nothing can beat Gene Roddenberry giving his script to Irving Lazar. Mm-hmm. Whom of you is Mr. Irving Lazar? Yeah, or stalking. See, everybody does it. We're doing it endlessly. Yeah, Narda, thank you for that too. I need to, have an agent and be on the map there. I set my voice aside, my burgeoning voice career aside, to get the documentary done. Okay. Yes, Chris Doohan. Am I a doctor? I'm a doctor of Trekology, if that's, and don't ask me to tell you where I got that. I got it at the School of Hard Space Knocks. But glad you're jumping in with us from Twitch, man. Okay. Well, bingo. There you go. That's how most of the character birthdays were derived, unless for the rare one, like I think Janeway's, which is mentioned on. There we go. 42 minutes past the chat. We've got the chat marking time minus now as a thing, right? Ford Prefect comes in at 47 minutes. A portal swallows the stream. That figures. Hey, JR, hailing frequencies are open. Yay, 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 yay. Yes, that was my phone. Sorry, guys. It was my phone ringing on the computer, which I did not ask for. Hey, Gregory Buttocks. What does it feel like to support an inferior wannabe Star Wars knockoff like Star Trek? You might want to check your history, both on what came first and who helped fund the other one. Yeah, might talk to Uncle George about that one. Uncle George had a lot to thank Uncle Gene for. I'll just put that up there to kind of laugh at. Much less the math of the thing. Let's see. Hey, we're getting big enough that we're on YouTube with trolls. That's pretty funny. Oh, yes, and the set tour in Ticonderoga. Very true, very true. Which is all recreations. I don't think maybe James actually got some actual things, but then they're all beautiful. I'm not going to just let's see. Let's see. Oh, I didn't do the parrots. I didn't do the parrots because we're into this format. Yeah. You want to hear that real quick? I'll do that real quick. I did them. I had them done up. Did I die? Maybe I won't do anything quick today because, oh, come on. It's time to get a new pad. When your pad is like at 100% power and it clicks off. Yeah, that's what happens. Well, guys, we'll have to get away with, let's see, SpongeBob is at top of the overalls. I remember that. There were no new real shakeups on the digitals and obviously no Star Trek in the top 10s. We'll look at the parrots last week, so sue me or don't. Anyway, this has been, I did not expect to have this many great questions, so I will not think of an AMA, American Medical Association, as a throwaway. Full in. Good stream. Oh, you meant the stream technically. Yeah. Well, I meant the content of the stream. I've done some really big topics the last 2 or 3 weeks. I wish I had the quality stream. We talked about Tulsa, talked about in relation to Trek and some of the reopening issues. And I wish I'd had this quality of stream of technical ability. I wish that stream had been technically this great for those topics. But it's been great to have it here with all of you guys today. Let me look here very quickly at the end. I think everybody is getting off. Right. We're all... Hey, Captain Calvin, you said no more questions. And yes, I remember when Colonel Blake died on MASH. Okay. 38 minutes, the Stargate closes. Okay, yes, guys. Wow, this has been great. This has been a great time. Thank you. I'm about to head off for a road trip. I'm a little, well, we're all excited for that. That'll be great. Meanwhile, I got a little bits and pieces of news. For one thing, hey, we need to do a shout out for all of our great Patreon supporters. So, in our TTL club, thank you, Blaze K and Robin Wilson, Lawrence Todd, Anne-Marie Siegel, Blake Arledge, Justin Porteous, Nathaniel Robinson. A lot of you are on with us live today. And hey, a big shout out also to our live wires, right? Rusty, I saw you in there. Halberon Good Johnson, Jalen Bullock, Gary Williams, Jared Cooper. Thank you, Jared. Mr. Vestek, Robert McLean, and Casey Shafsky. If you want to be a Patreon and help us, you know, sometimes the money gives me enough sanity to figure out another person to talk to about what's going on, and we may have fixed it. If you want to help out and maybe start growing again here, patreon.com/Trekland Live. I have a very simple one. We have so much else in Trekland. I keep my Patreon simple, but thank you. $5 and $10 levels for a mention, and the $10 folk, the live wires get, and I need to do this, I say every week, get access to our early Portal 47 interviews, like the first interview we did with Andrea Kindred back in 2017, excuse me. Hey, around the horn the rest of the week, we are on hiatus at Trek Files. So today there was no new episode. That may have startled a few of you, but we'll be off for at least a month, maybe as much as 6 weeks. We'll be back with our 7th season. Already we have guests lined up. It'll be awesome. But it's a perfect time to go back and look at the back catalog and check out some of the other Roddenberry podcasts too. Sci-Fi 5 is proceeding right along. A little 5-minute bit of sci-fi news every day. Some of them are Star Trek, but that's a great one. Fan Addicts is another one that just launched about celebrity sci-fi fans. Claire's running that one. So anyway, check them all out at Roddenberry, podcast.roddenberry.com, and all the old favorites too. Okay. We'll be back live with new Trek Files in about 4 to 6 weeks. We don't have it nailed down yet. We have to see what's going on. We have the guests. We don't have the premiere back. Otherwise, this Saturday, we missed last Saturday for the first time in ages. This Saturday, Life Support Live will indeed be back with a very special show. I'm saying no more. Standard format, but special. And I've teased it already too much. Join us, Dr. Ali and Dr. Trek. One of us is a real doctor going boldly through uncertain times. We'll have this theme this week has to do with rest and relaxation, leisure, transportation, that kind of thing. So I think we talked about this last night, so hopefully it won't change. Hopefully I'm not sending you a curve here, throwing you a curve. That's the theme for Saturday, 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern, 6 UK time, 7 Central Europe, okay? Join us. Wherever you're watching me now, you can catch Life Support Live. And once again, a quick shout out for the GoFundMe for Michael Braveheart. If you've got a few bucks to pitch in, it would be lovely. He really thanks his backer. Michael was Ensign Martinez or Nurse Martinez, Dr. Crusher's longtime non-speaking nurse, although he began with Dr. Pulaski in season 2. He was there through the end of First Contact. So jump in there, Michael. Really appreciates it. He's doing fine. I'm hoping to have him in the portal here soon. We're just having to see how his recovery and his physical therapy goes. What a Tuesday. I can't believe if all I have to do is cut off. Well, I don't cut off. This may be the first time I just post with no editing in ages to YouTube. Thanks, everybody, for being here, though. Great stuff today. We got into some actual meat places. It was actually a wacky doodle AMA on Star Trek. Yay. And only a little bit about Will Rogers. Thanks so much again. So many folks wandered by today that I hadn't seen in ages. I appreciate that. I am going to be at Trek Vegas, per the plan now, and also in mid-August, live. What does that look like? And also at Salt Lake FanX in September. So anybody that goes to the con formerly known as Salt Lake Comic-Con, we'll see you there. And more stuff to come in the future time as we creep back to what normal looks like. And I know some of us are ahead and behind, and we still have some variants lurking on the horizon that may throw all of this into a curveball. But we'll get there. We will get there. Until then, we have all of our virtual paths, thank goodness. Thank you all for joining me here on Tuesday every week. Join me on Saturday if you can. Join us in the portal if you really want to jump in and deep dive with us, portal47.net. I didn't do that one, did I? I did not do that one. Shame on me. Well, where are we? There we are. Portal47.net. Would I lie to you, right? If you're on YouTube right now, please subscribe. And that's my Twitter, at Larry Nemecek. And Larry Nemecek's Trekland, if you're with me now on Facebook, that's the Instagram. I just did a poll about Instagram. It was very interesting. I'm looking to make that a Tuesday topic in the future. Join us all the places. Until then, folks, please, please, please do what you can to stay healthy. Do all the things. Yes, even now. Stay woke and check your sources. Don't get sucked into something online. And you know. Trek well, everybody.